Hey everybody, welcome to the Third Legacy Committee workshop on the 12 principles of the 12 steps. We are in the 11th month, and so we are going to be talking about the 11th spiritual principle, which is
Spiritual awareness.
spiritual awareness. And what a better person to lead us off on spiritual awareness than Stephen. For those of you who don't know, we've been doing this all year, starting with January. We have a principle for each month, and so tell your friends. Okay, Stephen.
Well, thank you, Lara. And um, out of the gate this morning, we're gonna hear from Nancy, so I don't do my big rambling preamble.
Oh, okay. I guess I thought you were still going to ramble, and then then I would talk first. But that's just fine. Okay. Well, hi everybody. I'm Nancy, and I'm an alcoholic. And as Lara said, that this month is the 11th step, or the principle that goes along with that is spiritual awareness. Becoming and the step kind of says it great, right? To improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him. When I was thinking about this a little bit this morning, the line that kind of came into my awareness was the from what we read and how it works. And it says, the point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. And we're willing to grow along spiritual lines in order to become spiritually aware, right? It goes on to say that the principles are guides to progress. So becoming spiritually aware is a guide to progress, and that we then claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, which says to me that this is definitely a growth opportunity and an ongoing and expanding principle that I don't think we'll ever come to the end of. But so in thinking about spiritual awareness, kind of what came to my mind first is that, am I aware of my spirit, right? Am I aware of myself as spirit? I'm very aware of, the other side, the other side of me, the ego side, the self-will side, so to speak. I've had a lot of experience with that, and a lot of trying to manage that in order to um, manage that egotistical or self-willed side, to manage my life, which did not work. And blessedly so, it did not work. And I gratefully ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. So what is spiritual awareness? And I think it is a living state of conscious contact with God. And that grows through step 11 and actually through all of the steps. I don't just pop into step 11 without the action and the grace of the other steps that helps to straighten out my thinking and my understanding that, number one, like I don't heal myself. I'm not the healer of myself. But this spiritual awareness, meaning this action of step 11, becoming conscious, in more conscious contact with God, it gives me, or hopefully that I have gotten a growing ability to notice God's presence in my daily life, right? To notice how God speaks to me, all through the day, right? And this deepening conscious contact uh, becomes more solid, I guess, more consistent, than the occasional inspiration, right? We're to like build on this occasional inspiration until it is, a more consistent experience. And then from from that, then I'm increasingly sensitive to the guidance that I may receive, or intuition. So to me, it's a shift from self-will to alignment with God's will. And if I feel like, oh, I'm just not feeling it and not feeling spiritually aware, I'm struggling in step 11, my early sponsors let me know that if I ever felt stuck in a certain step, that I was most likely stuck in a step prior to the step that I think I'm stuck in. And that was actually really helpful to me because it made the steps a more cohesive and approachable program. So if I was not feeling it, I could look at where I was, in my first step, in my second step, who do I think God is? Am I surrendered at all? Am I resentful? Right? Am I fearful? Those all point me to the remedy for those things, which is also contained in the steps. I can set the fears and resentments on paper. I can talk to my sponsor about it. I can make an amend. Every one of the steps helps us to become more spiritually aware. And so on a like a daily attitude that I find really helpful. Well, for one, like Stephen and I always do some kind of prayer and meditation and reading every morning, which really helps. And we talk about it, as kind of a preamble to the day. And that kind of sets the day up for more, what's the word? It sets the day up for to be more sensitive to when irritations come up or anxiety comes up. And I think that's definitely a part of being spiritually aware. I'm aware of those things that make me feel off. And so if I feel fearful or resentful, it helps me to know that, okay, self-will is in operation here. Or even, like when I feel peace or when I feel, that joy in my heart. I mean, that's being spiritually aware as well. Or if honesty or dishonesty is occurring, I can ask myself, like, where did I lose my awareness? So it is all very much an ongoing and a very healing opportunity to measure, where I am. And if I am growing in humility, if I have greater compassion, if I have less reactivity, which is such a huge one for me, if I'm less reactive, I know I'm becoming more spiritually aware. If I'm more willing to forgive, I guess spiritual awareness for me, it shows up as a changed perception. And that seeing that happen or experiencing that happening, and there's much more to change, but we can claim our spiritual progress. I think that we're fooling ourselves or not. It doesn't help to not claim our spiritual progress, but to notice, things that would have really, really bothered me before or angered me or made me afraid. And if there's any twinge of that left, to be spiritually aware enough to go within and just to acknowledge that, to acknowledge that I'm not seeing this clearly. To me, that's spiritual awareness. If I can acknowledge, like, I'm upset and that tells me I'm not seeing this clearly, and I can give that misperception to my higher power and ask to help me see it differently. And so that to me is right now is the heart of spiritual awareness. And it can fluctuate, it can rise and fall. It's always there. It's not ever like our book says, it's not exclusive and it's very inclusive. It includes all of me. It includes all of my experience, my entire experience that I've had thus far into being today years old. Every every experience I've had can be included and healed through spiritual awareness. So I think that that's all I have right now, Stephen.
Well, thanks so much, Nancy. And I wanted to call on Michelle next because I heard there might be she might have to leave a little bit early, and hear her take on spiritual awareness. And Michelle, thank you so much for coming. You're up.
Hi guys, I'm Michelle. I'm an alcoholic. I missed your lead, Steve. I was a little late. I've been under the weather, but
Oh, you're so lucky I didn't have a lead today. It's
oh,
that with Nancy.
so I heard Nancy's, so I guess I'm caught up. This is wonderful. So thanks for offering me a chance to speak. I feel humbled by the topic, just all up. Um, you know, spiritual awareness. I don't know if I can claim it, although I do have an experience that's different from how I used to be. And what I recognize is that I can do a practice that connects me to something greater than thinking about myself. And that somehow or another that changes what leads me around the world from coming from my head to coming from my heart, truly. Lately I've been joking around that I call it GPS. It's like God positioning system. Is that I'm starting to gain some awareness of my orientation toward the rest of the world, toward the people in it, things in it, and the recipes in the book, and it tells me all kinds of things about how I might navigate. Like I like that in the section around, like it gives examples. For instance, the 12 and 12 talks about the St. Francis prayer, which I think I like stop and think about this person who is praying this prayer. And first of all, in the invocation, if you will, in the and I'm not necessarily a religious person, I am a spiritual person. And to connect to this person who lived a long time ago, who was talking to a higher power and then listening and being guided to a new experience. And also that to see the demonstration of this evolution of a human being and what they're asking for, like to seek to understand rather than to be understood. I mean, this sort of casting aside of this lens of self is really beautiful. It's literally like this equivalency amongst all living things and all people. It's quite beautiful. It actually makes me want to cry. Like, see, that's I think the language of the heart that Bill was talking about. It's not this thing that talks up here that says, oh, you shouldn't, or this, and maybe, oh my gosh, and fear. Like fear lives up here, but there's something else that resides in my heart that I can navigate using. And sometimes these things get in conflict because I'm carbon and I walk around the world having experiences. And my brain starts to interpret those things. And what I find is that if I come back to this book, it says, like, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or decision. We relax and take it easy. Well, I don't know, man. Anytime I was trying to make a decision in the past, it felt effortful. I was busy making lists, doing things, etc. And this is more of an ease and a listening. And then my heart knows what to do. I can choose to listen to it or not. And lately, what I notice is that this kind of practice on a daily basis encourages me to have different experiences, and the I get to go to see the fellowship and listen to other people, and then I learn how to what I might experiment with. Um, it's really incredible. I like that it also is very reasonable, like what's in this book in terms of putting stuff into action. Because it says like still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. And that's a good thing because boy, if I had to not mess up, I don't know. And sometimes I'm just I'm really moved by the fact that I can do absurd actions and have absurd ideas and then experiment with these things and be shown the truth. As long as I'm open hearted, like the program says, honest, open minded, and willing, I continuously evolve into a new awareness or a new experience of things. If I'm truly open minded, I don't know. Um, I've noticed that my interest in listening, both to other human beings and for this small interior resource that I have, which I think is some sort of channel to God, is more attractive all the time. Because when I follow that particular, sometimes it's not like an audible. It's not like audible. It's kind of heart again. If I follow that, then the most amazing things happen. It's like this immediate feedback loop. We're like highly improbable, living in the synchronicity, like all kinds of amazing like trajectory things start to spin out of it, and I can actually sometimes get a chance to see it. I don't know. That is quite beautiful. And so if that's what living in spiritual awareness is, I'm all for it. It's beyond my wildest dreams for someone who is having to fix, manage, control the world. Really, I hated myself, man. And I didn't know who I was. I had an illusion about who that was. I had an illusion about what people were and how they were, why they were doing the things they were. Like, and I don't know. I'm just having this real experience of being able to get off my back, get off everybody else's back, and like see with love how things are or might be. Are, I guess. Sometimes I only see it in arrears though. Like I'll be doing something, I'll look behind. Oh, like yesterday, I see why that happened now. It's neat because I don't always get to see real time. Although I can appreciate being in the now. Um, I feel like I'm just wandering all over the place because it's a very real experience that I live. It's not something I do anymore. I have practices, but truly, like throughout my day, I try to listen. I watch for resistance because I know that's when I'm likely to move into fear or control or something like that, when I feel tension in my body. And if I'm just easing through life, things just unfold in front of me. And so I don't know. If this would be useful for a newcomer, except that I'm not lying, and I didn't used to live like this at all, not even close. And I went and traded for the world. So there's no way I would have found any of this stuff. I don't think. I can't really know, but I don't think I would have found this stuff without the guidance of the steps with wonderful mentors, leaders, sponsors throughout the year, people with experience past my own, and people with less experience than me, showing me things all the time through their own experience. And then this great book that has a map in it. So I just really appreciate that because somehow or another I found a higher power I can rely upon. And that makes my life enriched. Okay, that's plenty out of me.
Hey,
So
thanks, Michelle, and thanks for joining us. And as you all know, this is being recorded, so I always want to give a shout out to the loyal AAers that are representing District 46 that have been with us the year. And I know you're just getting back from a dentist appointment, Claudia. So Claudia and Marty, you guys are up in whichever order. Are they on mute?
I don't know, I can't hear.
I
All right,
think
there we go.
there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Hey,
Got it.
We're sitting in the car at
right.
a park in Clinton. Marty just picked me up from the ferry. My name's Claudia. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
And
Gloria.
spiritual awareness, it's I I see it in reflection. I see it when I look back over a situation or a series of situations or a feeling that is different than the way I used to look at things. And to me, that's what that looks like.
We might be having some. Maybe if you can hear me, maybe if you try turning off your video, it'll give you more audio boost. Or reboot, and of course we'll come right back to you. And we've got George, who's keeping Southern California spiritually aware, that joined us today. Thank you so much, George. And can you take the mic?
Um, I'm George. I'm an alcoholic, and I've never done this before, so I kind of am winging it a bit here and going by my own definitions of things. But um, is the question, what is spiritual awareness? Is that the
If that's what you want the topic is spiritual awareness. The principle is spiritual awareness.
okay? So for me, that's mindfulness and being non-judgmental, and might call that non-judgmental awareness. But it could also be my relationship with God. And Marty and Claudia, I just took over for you guys, and then we're going to come back to you in just a moment. Um, and for me personally, I've noticed that to be on the spiritual path is to be bombarded by videos and books and webinars and lectures and even films and that sort of thing. But it always ends up with me back in the question of what am I doing as far as my relationship with God? How am I maintaining a good relationship with God? And I am working on reading this book. It's called Practicing the Presence, and it's about a monk in the 1600s. And he was practicing his faith at a time when there was famine, a mini ice age, a 30-year war, um, bubonic plague, and he carried a severe leg wound. But he had this very interesting approach. It's actually the same approach that I have, which is, it all comes down to practice. It's really not about what kind of cool ideas I can come up with or remember. It's all about practice. And for him, he conceives, as far as maintaining this relationship with God, he thinks of God as a friend. And I'm going to quote him. He says, God is always near you and with you. Don't leave him alone. You would think it rude to leave a friend alone who came to visit you, then why abandon God and leave them alone or him alone? And then I noticed that in our big book, we also refer to God as a friend. And under We Agnostics, it says on page 55, we finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. So here you have a humble monk in the 1600s and the Alcoholics Anonymous big book in 1935, both referring to God as a friend. And I thought that was an interesting way to to think of it. So And then, of course, in the big book, we go all the way from there under We Agnostics to the great fact, which is see to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. So in that continuum between initially thinking of God as a friend and this great fact, we have the growth of our relationship with God. But Brother Lawrence, this is the humble monk, says it's important to remember that this conversation with God that we maintain all the time, we're always talking to God as a friend, right? We start first by going to what Bernadette Roberts calls the still point. Course in Miracles calls it the changeless dwelling place. Rupert Spira calls it being. But this is the place inside of us which is always quiet, always still, which doesn't change. Everything, nothing ever changes there. And that's our starting point for the non-judgmental awareness that I talked about, for our relationship with God, if you prefer that conceptualization of spiritual awareness. And I think, I've got more, but I think that's probably a good place to stop.
Well, thank you so much, George.
All right.
And how about the Bridge Twins again? We'll give it a try.
Okay, Claudia, alcoholic. Sorry, we suddenly disconnected and reconnected. To me, spiritual awareness has more to do with connectivity. And I was just looking it up. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. It's walking into a room and feel a sense of connectedness, as opposed to walking into a room and feeling a sense of not belonging. And it might have to do with my preparedness or a history with these people. But when I walk into a room, I was saying, like my Monday morning women's meeting in Langley, I walk in and I feel I feel a spiritual connectedness with these women. I've known them for several years now. There was a banquet last weekend and we weren't able to go. We had a family commitment instead. And several women came up to me and asked me why I wasn't there. They had missed me. And that absolutely blew my mind. As funny as that sounds, they miss me. I have an awareness of a connectedness of the spirit with the women in that room. And that to me is what it is. It's connectivity. And I don't always see it when it's happening. And sometimes it doesn't exist at all. And it's usually where I'm somewhere where I'm in fear, where I'm in doubt, where I'm concerned about someone or something, and I lose that sense of being connected. And it is a spiritual awareness. And it's funny because, like I said, I don't know what it is when I'm there. But if I were to go home and tell you how it felt, that's how it felt. The other thing was, I was describing to a friend when I was sitting on the ferry that I had a toothache for the last few days. And I was concerned about a holiday weekend and not getting in. And I called to see if I could get an appointment next week. And they said, we can get you in at 1. And we decided Marty would drop me off at the ferry and I would take the bus because I didn't want to mess around with traffic. Literally drops me off. I get there, the ferry comes in, I get on the ferry, I wait 5 minutes, the bus comes, the bus drops me off. I go in, they see me, they said, it's not a tooth, it's an infection, you have to take some antibiotics. The price they quoted me was, it turns out my insurance is going to pay for it. I walk out the door, I catch the bus back, I get on the ferry, and there was no stress and no anxiety, and everything just worked perfectly. And I like to look at that as a spiritual experience. You know, I wasn't worried about it not happening that way. I hadn't predicted that this was going to be a hassle. I simply knew that if I didn't make it on here, if I had to participate on Zoom on the ferry, whatever it was going to be okay. So it's that to me is what that spiritual principle of being connected through prayer. I have some prayers I say when I get up in the morning in my mind and at night, and I have a meditation practice in the morning, and it involves gratitude. And sometimes I have to be reminded to be aware of those connections, to be aware of that concept of synchronicity. It's interesting. I was reading about and said some people feel it's got a confirmation bias. I'm looking for it, so I find it. So what? So what, I say, and if there's a bias that somehow I need to prove that these events have a connection, or there's a causal relationship, it doesn't matter. If I see it, that affects my mood, it affects my attitude, affects my relationships. So why not look for that spiritual connection of things? So that's about it. I am not a person who sees it as a connection with a higher power. I see it as a connection with others, and how I live my life. Oh, the thing I forgot was I got on the ferry having a chat with someone, and then I got on the bus with someone, a woman who helped me figure out what to do. The people at the dentist office were so kind, and everything worked smoothly. And I thought, that's the other part of it is I can also have a role in that awareness, in that spiritual connection. Am I looking at my shoes and frowning, or am I out there looking for that need, that desire to have that? So that's me for today. I don't like having an infection, but I'm really grateful that everything worked out smoothly. And I will pass it to Marty.
Thanks so much, Claudia.
Steve, my name is Marty. I am an alcoholic.
Marty.
And thank you to everyone that's in service to this meeting down at Central Office. Awareness in and of itself, for me, is spiritual. It's interesting. Sometimes I just don't know what's around me. I'm looking at our picture. As I've been watching our picture here on the Zoom, I'm looking at these trees, and I forget that the whole roof of this car is glass, and you don't know that. You never think about it until I'm on the Zoom meeting, and I go, "Oh gosh, the whole roof's glass." That's awareness. But the spiritual aspect, I think one of the great gifts for me for this program was this spiritual awareness. The first was the awareness that I had a malady, and which I wasn't aware of, and so many people die from it without ever becoming aware of it. And the second thing is that I became aware of a solution. And this was I live today in more of a spirit world as a result of this experience, which is all encompassing. It's not just the program or the steps or the sponsor or fellow alcoholics or the meetings. It's a combination of everything. And so I live in this, this morning I was thinking about, we had that meeting this morning, and I was thinking about um, living in the moment and being grateful just for being alive and being sober, and how important that is. And to me, this is living, this is spiritual awareness, rather than being driven by desires or fears or uh, resentment, pity, anger, whatever. To just be able to relax and be in the moment, and be eternally grateful for the life I have, uh, the life I've been given. Um, and to me, that is a spiritual awareness. Uh, I'm a firm believer you can live by a set of spiritual principles and not believe in a deity, and it's worked for me for a long time. And is there a power greater than myself? Absolutely. I've experienced it. So uh, anyway, grateful to be alive and sober. It's great to be here, and I'll pass it back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Marty. And I got a little story about spiritual awareness too. So I'm talking to my sponsor, and we get to the whatever, however it came up, spiritual awareness. And he said, do you know about spiritual awareness? And I'm thinking, of course I do. I've been around for a while. And he said, there couldn't be spiritual awareness unless there was spiritual unawareness. And I'm saying, kind of guardedly, like, yeah, okay. And he said, well, the big book, he said his interpretation of it um, was you can be aware of spirituality or live in a world of make believe. And I'm thinking, where's he going with that? And he said, Steve, it's so cool. He said, the world of make believe, you make it up, and then you believe it. And he said, it's just another way of saying ego. And or there's living in the great reality, which has already been talked about this morning. And I'm going, yeah. And he said, you still don't get it. He said, there's no such thing as make believe because you made it up and you believe it. There is only reality and your avoidance of it. And he said, there's no third place. And I'm thinking, and we talked about it, and it was really helpful to me, and it's helpful to what everybody's said today, because somehow in my mind, I think that there must be a third place. There's the world of the ego, and there's reality or the world of the spirit, and then there's where I am. And he assured me that only in my mind is there a third place. And so he said, how it looks is, and I have a lot of experience with this, that you can really be living in the world of make believe or under the guidance of the ego, because he calls it the same thing, and try and be spiritual. Um, and I didn't like talking about that much because it kind of hit home that yeah, I've confused reality with the world the ego shows me, and then I also want to be seen as a nice guy and doing nice stuff and things like that. But I've also had experiences where I've gone all in, or one of the quotes from the big book is willing to go to any length and pursued a course of action um, that was all in the world of the spirit, and of course got to experience the results from that, which are always great. They're always fantastic because that's the only consequences that can come from it. And it's kind of going back to when Michelle was talking. I sure identified with it. Doesn't last long with me either, Michelle. Hopefully more and more. But this spiritual awareness, I had never thought about it. It is, why would I be aware unless I could also be unaware? And just because I'm unaware of reality doesn't mean reality isn't there. It just dictates. It just dictates how my life is. I found a quote it's a real short one that I wanted to read. In AA, the principle of spiritual awareness is woven through the steps, the traditions, and the daily practice of recovery. I think at least all of us at this meeting will agree with that. It isn't about religion or dogma. It's about becoming awake to a dimension of life that alcoholism has numbed, distorted, or blocked entirely. And I really was able to identify with that. Um, we've all been in AA for a while, and it never occurred to me that one of the consequences of alcoholism has blocked entirely for me for a long time. Uh, um, the awareness of reality, which I think when I'm aware of the truth, then I have a choice to continue to live in make believe or live in reality. And that's where I felt with me, and I've heard others say the same thing. That's where recovery really begins, where we see the choice and pick truth instead of make believe. Anyway, enough out of me. And Cindy.
Hi,
Yeah,
the alcoholic. I I just looked at spiritual awareness and thought that's a really big topic. I can just talk about my experiences and my experience of feeling just when I was drinking, just feeling a moment of something bigger, better, different, loving. And then my mind saying, well, if it's there, I got to keep going there. And it wasn't there. It wasn't this. It was like, then my head took over. I couldn't get back. And the one thing coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and just talking to a complete stranger on the phone was I I felt that so much, and that it was totally out of my control. My connection and that I was okay. And so continued awareness is just living in the moment. And that tree that looks so fabulous right now that I never noticed before. Or just having an experience that isn't in my control, that I don't make happen. And the whole thought that I'm am not alone, that's huge. And that a part of me, my heart, where I thought was a whole, is whole. And I don't know, since I've some goofy things have happened since I've gotten into this program. Things like, for I went to church, had that feeling that, okay, I got to read the Bible because that's exactly where the answer is. Well, it wasn't there. Well, it was there. It's just that I couldn't see it. It was in the stories. It was in the stories that we tell. And it's been through this program that all of a sudden I'll just be sitting there and I'll go, oh, now I get it. Now I get what that story's about. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. And Lara's out in the main office. I'm seeing if I can grab her for a comment. She might be busy.
Here I am. Well, I don't really, let's see, sort of feel like the whole point of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to have spiritual awareness. Step 12, which I know we'll talk about next month, but the promise is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I'm not really sure why people would be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and want to try not seek spiritual awareness or awakening. I kind of think it's the whole point of the thing. So I'm one of those sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, like super slowly ones. And
It doesn't say super slow.
oh, it says super slowly in my book. uh, I read somewhere that Bill Wilson was always a seeker, and not that, I mean, we're all just a bunch of drunks, right? And Bill Wilson was just a drunk, but he was constantly seeking. And I know people in this room, personally, I know people that are constantly seeking, and I am always seeking. Sometimes I'm looking in the wrong places, but that's part of seeking, right? Bill Wilson talks about looking in some interesting places, looking for a spiritual experience. But yeah. Anyway, I just think that that's what this whole thing is about. So I'm grateful that the steps provide me with the disciplined outline of how to do that. I think it's super important that the wording is praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. It really that wording only for the knowledge of God's will for us. I've made mistakes of praying for patience and humility and tolerance and that sort of thing, and that is anybody who's done that knows how funny that is. Yeah. So I went through a little bit of a time where I prayed. I took the St. Francis prayer and broke it out into different sections, and meditated on where there is discord, may I bring peace or whatever, right? Like, and I would inevitably be faced with a bunch of discord, and I'm like not interested. I'm not interested in a bunch of discord. So I stopped praying like that. I'm praying only for knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out now. So sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but I'm finally, after 39 years of sobriety, doing what it tells me to do, which is praying only for the knowledge of God's will for me. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lara. And I have a real good friend in AA who prayed for the Chicago Bears, and I think they're 8-3. And I know people that are praying for the Seahawks, but and they're 8-3. So we'll see. But I get what you mean about praying only for God's will. And I want to thank everybody for showing up today. And we will be here next month too on the 12th principle. And we close out with how about with the responsibility prayer if you want to unmute and get to ask the question, who's responsible?
I am
I am
responsible when anyone, anywhere
Reaches out for help.
I want the hand of AA always to be there.
And for
And for
that,
that,
I
I am responsible.
and I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
You too.